Hello, my fellow pilots, and welcome again to another episode of Star Citizen FM. My name is Dr. Hawk, and I'm going to walk you through a very interesting episode today. I like to keep surprises as surprises, but without further ado...
Incoming transmission.
And bam! What do you know? A wild Chris Roberts has appeared. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Pretty ecstatic, actually. Before we begin our little interview here, I'd like to give a quick shout out to CCCDober, who was actually very kind enough to donate his interview with you to me. So, big shout out to you, CCCDober.
That's pretty awesome.
Well, yeah, just want to make let people know I'm not selling kidneys or something to be able to do this. So let's jump right to it. I wanted to ask a few questions, and I figured we'd start with, ship combat. A lot of attention has been directed to ship combat, and rightly so. This is a space sim after all. But something that some of us foreign people and that have been talking about is also shipboarding. It's an interesting focus. You guys, you have the crossbow included with the Kickstarter and partnership. How in depth do you guys plan to go with this? Just a basic little shooter, or again, I might get stabbed for this, a full-on Battlefield Call of Duty, similar experience with shooting, etc.
Well, I mean, it's not going to be Battlefield or Call of Duty that you have a massive playfield in, but in terms of the first-person shooter fidelity, it will be pretty much at those levels, because essentially we're on CryEngine, so you get the full Crysis 3, which is where it's at right now, level of first-person fidelity. So we have basically that entire engine, and on top of that, we're building all the space flight. So actually, when you fly spaceships and everything, really, it's literally a first-person game. You sit down in a cockpit, and we're really just expanding the vehicle functionality. So all the functionality you see if you're playing say Crysis 3 actually exists inside Star Citizen, and really then it's a matter of like the arena you're fighting on. So like, depending if you're boarding ships, most of the time the spaces are fairly small and constrained, and our combat's going to be focused. I think I would say it would be a little more realistic and a little more strategic, and less just sort of a blind shooter where you mow down 50 nameless or faceless enemies, which maybe you would do in a military first-person shooter. So I don't know if that's a good answer, but in terms of like the weapons and the weapons you can use and what they do and all the items you can carry and all that kind of stuff, the fidelity animations, being able to hide behind cover, all that kind of stuff, it's all in there. It's sitting already in the system.
Well, I figured it would be something similar, and given that, this is CryEngine after all. Like, look at MechWarrior Living Legends. They took the same aspect, first-person little guy running around in elemental or Longinus battle armor and just jumping into your respective mechs, aerospace, whatever. So, at the same time, it's not that much hard to do, but at the same time, people I know have been voicing concerns as it goes in the forum. Is this becoming a first-person shooter, or is the primary focus a space sim?
No, primary focus is space combat. Most of the stuff supports space combat. The sort of first-person action is you moving around your bigger ships, so you can get out of the seat and go to the back bunk or whatever, and then also the boarding actions, which I would say would be a much smaller part of the space combat, because most of the time it's going to be smaller ships fighting smaller ships, and there really isn't much need or reason for boarding in those situations. So really the boarding only really starts to become useful for much bigger ships that you can take as prizes. That won't be all the time. So I would say it's a nice extra bit of game play that comes out of the fact that the engine and the system already supports it. That's one of the advantages of CryEngine. CryEngine, essentially you're basically taking, in our case right now, we're on the most recent version of the CryEngine, Crysis 3, and then you can do whatever you want to do on top of it. Whereas if you license Unreal, you're not really taking Gears of War, for instance, as a base that you're building on. So you actually have a lot more of the game functionality already existing in CryEngine from the get-go, which just means there's less stuff for us to code, so we can sort of take advantage of some of the fun stuff that's been developed over the last X number of years with the various versions of Crysis. And so, so it's a nice additive thing. I kind of wanted, one of my fantasies was always being able to get up, move around the ship, Millennium Falcon style, board another ship, like you do at the beginning of Star Wars, and the Rebel blockade runner.
Right.
I kind of would like to have some sort of cool zero-G action. I mean, I really, if we can do it, if we have enough time, I'd like to have some decompression and the side of a hull being blown out. I don't know whether we necessarily will be able to do that up front, but it'll definitely be one of the things that will be in the game down the road. Maybe not right on the initial release, but I'm determined to have that in because I think that would just be really cool.
So can we expect a nano suit as a hidden Easter egg or something, given that this is CryEngine? Nano suit, spacesuit?
No, I don't really know about that. The funny thing is that sort of EA, all the Crysis stuff is all owned by EA.
Right.
And they're kind of like particular about any asset sharing. So I doubt that we'll actually have a nano suit. Although a bunch of our spacesuits are going to look cool and probably not that much different.
It was just something funny. So in relation to the actual players, with the last question, I know you mentioned you wanted to include bars and meeting places and the whole aspect of walking around, even in your hangar. Even Wingman hinted at needing something to speed around larger hangars. EVE has still yet to achieve this, and a lot of games actually haven't achieved this, as the focus ended up being the actual game, the space combat. How do you plan to address it? Are we going to end up maybe seeing it later down the road, or will we be lucky enough to have full-on emotes, maybe DarkSouls style, praise Chris Roberts, son?
Okay, but are you talking about having a cart to zoom around your hangar, or are you talking about like the avatar that you walk around and seeing what you...
I'm asking, what do you if you had an unlimited time span, try to do with these characters, given that this...
So we are shooting to have a proper avatar system. You'll be able to customize your look to a certain degree, maybe not to the insane amount of detail that EVE does, but then EVE is really just doing it for a sort of 3D live character portrait.
Yeah.
And you'll be able to pick kind of like what outfits you'll be able to wear, and you'll be able to buy different outfits or clothes in different areas around the universe. And to a certain level, where we would like to have I don't know whether it's a level of emotes, but we may have that. But we're also looking at tech that we can live drive your face based on your webcam, which will be pretty cool, because then I could be talking to you and you'd be hearing my voice, but you'd be seeing my avatar flapping his lips, not so it would be sort of almost kind of in fiction, immersive, so to speak.
Arma 3 does that, if I'm correct. Yes.
I don't know. I haven't checked on Arma 3, but that's kind of what we're aiming for, and if it does that, obviously we'll have to check it out. It's not, Arma 3 isn't out yet, though, right? I thought that...
No, they have the alpha, but I have noticed in videos when people chat, the model's mouth moves accordingly. Maybe not as accurately, but it does.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, I mean that tech exists right now. I mean, on my Logitech cameras, like I can overlay something on my face if I want to in their webcam app. So there's a couple of different solutions, and we're sort of testing them all out, but that's one of our goals, is to be able to do that, because we just think that would be pretty cool.
Well, we'll have to make sure there's at least the praise the Chris Roberts emote in there. So
we don't need so much of that. That's fine.
Oh, come on, you're a hero. So another question, how do you guys plan to link the modules? Because I know this is kind of similar to how World of Tanks, eventually they want to link all their games together, World of Warplanes, World of Battleships, World of Space, whatever. They have that initial plan, but we haven't seen it yet. How seamless are we, how seamless is this going to be? Is it going to be as seamless as, say, Dark Souls? Is it there's no loading times, or will there be some loading times? Have you been able to tackle this?
I mean, of course, you always have to load data, because not everything can sit in memory all the same time. But the way we're designing it is you're not going to be aware. There won't be any like static loading screens. We basically stream data in as we're playing the game. And for instance, an example would be going from space down onto the planet. While that's happening, we're playing our landing in-game cinematic, and you're there in your cockpit. You're looking out the window. You're going through clouds as you're descending through the planet. And while all that's happening, it's sort of streaming in the area that you're going to land on. So because that landing sequence takes, whatever it is, 30 seconds, a minute, I don't know. That's how we're sort of landing in, sort of streaming in the data. So the idea is you never really see or notice loading because it's sort of all happening in the background. So that's part of it. I mean, in terms of linking the modules, I mean, I think we're a little different than World of Tanks in that, like, we started out knowing what our big world was, and we're just talking about taking discrete parts of that world and breaking them off and giving them to the community earlier to test, play with, give us feedback on, so we can iterate on them and we can make sure they work on all these different configurations. So it's different. That's not, World of Tanks is they start out with their tank combat bit, and like, oh, it'd be cool if we hook it into World of Battleships and World of Planes, but they're sort of pretty different things, and then they're trying to fold it into sort of more of a meta game. Whereas, for us, we always, we know the universe, and these things are all fitting into it. But to give an example, like what will happen is like you'll have the hangar module, which we're shooting to release the first iteration of it, towards the end of August for Gamescom, and then we'll iterate on that a few times. But then when we get to the end of the year, they do the dogfighting module. The dogfighting module will sort of be additive to the hangar module. So you'll basically start in the hangar module. That's where you'll do your matchmaking, outfit your ship, and then you can, we haven't decided whether it's you walk through a door to do a simulation, or you climb in the cockpit of whatever ship you're going to take off in, and then bam, you go into the space dogfighting. So basically, the hangar module will go into the dogfighting module, and when we do the planet side module, we'll have like a door that you'll be able to walk outside of the hangar, and then bam, you're on the planet side module. You can go and walk around and go to a shopkeeper and go and talk to people in a bar and stuff like that. So that's kind of how it'll naturally sort of expand out based on how they would do in the game itself.
So pretty much just using magician's trickery to make sure that the illusion and immersion is upheld at all times.
Oh yeah. That's with everything.
That's a video game. You're a magician, basically. You're providing entertainment for a person.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just want you to feel like you're in the game world all the time. So you don't want any time when people feel like they're coming out of it, or they're feeling like they get reminded that they're on a computer or playing a computer game.
Like throwing up a microtransaction window, buy this and you can continue.
Yeah, we'll do that. That when you're in the game, essentially all your purchases are in game, in fiction, and they're all with game credits. So
I know you'd mentioned previously yourself and I both found Dead Space 3 different than the first iteration, and that's one thing that turned me off right away. Oh, this is immersive. Oh, they want me to buy stuff. Well, crap.
Yeah, well, I think that takes you out. I mean, for that very reason, I don't like most game interfaces or HUDs, because they feel very sort of gamey. They feel like an arbitrary overlay on something I'm looking at. So, that's one of the reasons why, the HUD that we're going to be doing in the ships that you fly is very much more like along the lines of Iron Man, where it's sort of like floats in front of your eyes and tags targets and sort of feels sort of like a three-dimensional holographic projection. So it sort of looks like what you would imagine be your HUD if you're in a spaceship or you're wearing a suit or something.
Very nice. So transitioning into something related with the connectivity, I know the sharding system that you guys have discussed has been talked about before, but it's still an interesting topic. Some people think they're going to be thrust into a matchmaking like screen or situation. Others are hoping it'll be, as you say, seamless loading. Are you able to extrapolate on this any more at this current moment, or is that still something to be seen at a later date?
Well, the way I view the instancing working is kind of how I viewed the streaming. It's the same thing. It should really be transparent to the player. So he's like this is kind of a bit technical, but in the player's point of view, he's always in his world. He never leaves his world. We just basically stream other players in and out of his world space, and the same happens on the other people's client. So in your client, you always exist in your world. What we call the universe cluster essentially is determining who you're close to, who you're friends with, who are in your system, and then it's basically saying, okay, well, this, and this person are going to stream into your local space on your clan, and it's doing exactly the same thing on those other people's, and it's saying, okay, all you people are now existing in the same space, and hands it off to a server to basically coordinate that in that space, and then when they leave, they basically get cleaned up out of whoever the local client space is.
That sounds oddly familiar to a game that has Souls and Dark in it. They did the similar system, except the network code, as far as I am aware, basically just pulled anyone that was within your region. In fact, connecting with friends at the immediate time was nigh impossible.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, very possibly. I mean, I don't know their specific structure. I mean, obviously, we're gonna have a lot more people, but it's basically the way that we're set up and the way the tech's gonna work is that we just stream we'll stream when you land on the planet. That's streaming in. When other players come into your space, they stream into a local space. And what we're really doing is just sort of basically being traffic cops. So we're sort of seeing in our we have a whole universe view of where everyone is and what locations they're in, and then we're basically saying, okay, well, you guys would see each other or should be in the same area of space, and so then we sort of gather up those clients and throw them off to a server that will handle the sort of per frame communication, and then go from there. But like it's all kind of seamless. It's not like, okay, loading screen while you're entering a nav area or a loading screen while you're entering an asteroid field. It's like you're basically, as far as you're concerned, you keep flying around in space. You never hit loading screen, and people just sort of start, you'll come across someone as you fly across space, or you'll come across a planet, and then you go through the clouds, and then you'll come down and you'll land on that space base. And
very nice.
It all sort of seems to be continuous.
So with the upcoming modules, that'll be a good opportunity to test connectivity with, say, people across continents and countries. Me playing with Zane, for example, if he's in Germany.
Yeah, that's the whole point. So the whole point of like doing this iterative testing and giving these pets out. I mean, even in the Hangar module, we have some simple MMO back-end stuff. I think probably not the first iteration, but maybe the second iteration in terms of adding your friends. But that's partly to test out that level of code that will then become bigger and more robust in the dogfighting module. And so I think the thing that we need everyone to remember is that they will be testing all this stuff, and it's not a finished game yet, right? It's going to be a finished game down the road. So don't expect everything to work perfectly and be error free or be as polished as it's going to be finally. But that's the point of having a great community, is they get to get involved, they give their feedback, they help make the game better.
I'm pretty sure, most of us are mature, but when it comes to that, it'll be a good opportunity, see what works, what doesn't. When come the dogfighting module, you want to make sure that, if I were to play, let's say with Zane, that dogfighting isn't, 500 ping. That could be detrimental to the immersion.
Exactly. That is dealing with like how many people we can have in one instance to fight each other, what the pings that that are acceptable, that aren't acceptable, what the balance of the ships are, is one feature or weapon too strong, all those things. I mean, that's the whole idea of balancing it out in the dogfighting module, is to try and get after a few iterations something that everyone feels like is kind of fun, well, not kind of fun, really a lot of fun, and great and well balanced, and then that gets plugged into the bigger game and world.
I can just see the reports right now, given our last interview. Chris Roberts is OP nerf blocks. You did say you wanted to fly around with something a little stronger. So with this hangar module, you plan to maybe go in and just allow people, let's say, invite as many as they can, and depending on how hard that crashes, scale it back from there? Because I could see some crazy hangar parties.
We're going to use it to stress test. So, I mean, I don't know which way we'll go. Like, first of all, we try it with a small number, and then a few more, and a few more, and a few more. But basically, we're going to be using it to find out, what is a practical limit, what can we take, and it's going to be kind of a little fluid because we've got a variety of ships, right? So single-seater fighter is different than a Constellation or a Corvette, where that's multi-crew vehicle. So yeah, it's just going to be interesting. So I mean, my goal is to do it in a more public manner with our community, and I think it will probably make us tune it and make it better, because I just know we're going to have so many people that you guys are going to run it into the ground, and we'll know what the issues or the exploits are or the problems are much quicker than if we did it with a traditional testing cycle where you've got 20 testers, but that's not the same as having 100,000 people going out there dogfighting.
Right. Speaking of ships, that brings up another interesting topic. I actually finally got to play one of your games for the first time, and I think I mentioned that last time. It was Privateer, and this was a game that as a kid, we didn't have a good computer, and I read the manual over and over thinking it would be so cool if I could play this. And finally playing it, it still, in my opinion, holds up. This isn't brown-nosing or anything. It was a lot of fun. Me and my friend played it, and then I watched him because he's much better at it than I am. But one of the things I did notice at the time, the radar made a lot of sense. I played a lot of space games where, they have the three-dimensional, six-axis sphere of radar, and I half the time can't understand, is the guy behind me? Is he in front of me? How do you guys actually plan to address the radar? Because Privateer, I think, did it great. Like, how do you plan to address it in Star Citizen?
We're going to have different. We're going to have different versions and different modes of the radar. So there will definitely be the Wing Commander / Privateer style radar. So there's the different ones. Basically the two base types that you normally see are the Elite style radar, which I think the one you're referring to, and then the Wing Commander Privateer style radar. So the Wing Commander Privateer radar is the best kind of radar for close-in dogfighting, because essentially it's all about situational awareness, and it's sort of showing you which way you have to turn to get the target into your front view. But it's not very good at really giving you a sense of distance, right? So when you look at that radar, you know that someone's behind you or someone's in front of you, or you need to turn right or left or pitch up and down to get them into your view. And then the Elite style radars much better at giving you an idea of less like how you have to orientate yourself to get them into view to fight them, but more about situationally where they are with respect to you. Are they above you? Are they below you? How far away are they from you? So we're actually in Star Citizen going to have multiple sort of radar modes. I'm not quite sure whether it's some ships will be using that certain display and some more dogfighting ones will be more the Wing Commander style, or maybe even your radar will have the ability to switch between the modes. But that's kind of sort of our approach, and we have that in a lot of stuff. Like there's a lot of customization, so there's not one right approach to how things work, which I think is going to be good, because I think there'll be, I think one of the watchwords of what we're doing is sort of having the ability to customize and have a lot of knobs and dials you can turn to sort of tweak the experience, so you sort of feel empowered. And the way I like it is it should be like Wing Commander, simple to play at the beginning, and then as you get more into it and you want to push it a bit more, you can start turning off automatic and turning on manual and controlling and changing little things here and there that may give you a slight edge in combat.
That sounds like Forza Motorsport. They'd give you more money and resources if you turned off your car's, ABS and your skid assist, and basically if you were really good, you made a lot of money and you got your good cars fast. Or if you're like me, you crashed a lot because you were trying to make a lot of money and not doing so well. But back to the topic of the radar though, so you'd have different variants you could buy, etc. I know I mentioned previously microtransactions and how you plan to have that as credits, but we won't see people buying, let's say the Mark III super elite radar with, $200 or something, right? No pay to win.
Oh, no, there's definitely no pay to win. I mean, so this is kind of funny, because there was this big article in Gama Sutra where I guess the tanks guys.
Oh, I was actually just gonna bring that up. We were thinking. Go ahead. We're thinking the same thing.
Saying, we're not gonna be pay to win anymore, and then they said we'll let you spend money to buy a premium tank, and I'm like, oh, hang on a second. But my definition of pay to win or not pay to win is, I think my pay to win is any item that you can only ever buy with cash that gives you an advantage in playing the game. So I still think World of Tanks is a certain amount of pay to win if you can only buy a premium tank with money, and then that allows you to get experience faster or earn silver faster or whatever inside it. So I'm not sure that that's necessarily all just straight cosmetics. So in Star Citizen, the cardinal rule is you can buy everything in the game with in-game credits, and in fact there are some things that you have to earn by gameplay, and you can't even buy with in-game credits. So the only way you can spend money is you could buy some more in-game credits, and we're also going to limit that to a certain level because we don't want anyone to sort of like over flood the system. But really, that's more a convenience thing. It's just because basically time equals money, and there'll be some people that will be like, look, I don't have 20 hours to fly and build up this big basic credit, so I can go and buy a constellation, but I want to fly around in a constellation. So I want to buy some credits with money, and I'll buy a constellation. Well, they have no advantage over the person that played the game and earned those credits by trading that also bought a constellation. It's not like they're flying a constellation that's got any more armor or any more ability to move or do anything else like that. In fact, the person that probably played the game to get the constellation has played it longer, and so they're probably better at it because there's a big skill. Because even if you've got a good ship in this or a good weapon in this game, it's still skill based, right? So you have to be a decent pilot. So yes, having a stronger ship or whatever will help you, but you still have to be a good pilot. And then also there's pros and cons. So bigger ships, yes, they got more armor, they got more shields, they got heavier hitting weapons, but then they can't turn as fast and they can't move as fast. And so there's a sort of lot of rock paper scissors that are going on. But yeah, that's my definition of pay to win is just basically if you have items that you can only buy with cash, and we have no items you can only buy with cash, period, in the game. But I don't have a problem with people paying some money to sort of advance their position just because they don't have, because I think it's unfair. I don't think you should give a benefit to people that have all the time in the world over people that don't have all the time in the world, just like you shouldn't give a benefit to people that have all the money in the world over people that have none of the money in the world. So both groups in this system, in my mind anyway, and I'm sure that I know there's a lot of people that don't agree with my definition of pay to win, but in my mind this is the fairest system because I don't give anyone a particular advantage. It's like you can put time in or you can put some money in to buy some more credits, but you're not going to have an advantage by doing that over someone that's put the time in, and you'll all be able to buy exactly the same things, and then on top of that it still comes down to a skill level.
Yeah, very true. You cannot buy skill, and if only so many games you could just strip away the pay-to-win features and actually play those players, you find they're not as good as they think they are.
Well, so, I definitely think that, and I think that's part of the key, right? So I also think that Star Citizen's skill-based, so you got to fly and all the rest of stuff, and a lot of sort of the pay-to-win, especially say maybe some of the Asian ones that you see, that's more like you're winning if you've got the 80th level paladin and you're fighting a 30th level character, you'll just win. He can't beat you.
Sort of a thousand truths.
Yeah, so it's absolutely South Park.
South Park.
So I mean that's kind of my view on it. I mean, obviously we need to have a way to earn revenue on the game once it's live because I want to be adding a lot of content, and of course doing that you've got to pay people and you've got to run your servers and stuff, so you have to have some way that some money will come in. But I'm pretty confident that the way I'm proposing, even though potentially it's fairly risky because everyone could just play and never put any more money in and they wouldn't be disadvantaged, I think it will work because there's enough of a balance in the people that have backed Star Citizen that some people have time and some people have money, and so they all make a choice, and the people that don't have the time tend to have a job, so they've got a bit more money so they can spend, so it sort of balances itself out, and it'll be good. So the only time in basically the Star Citizen, I guess, where people are really sort of just paying cash versus credits is kind of now, and that's really because they're in essence what they're really doing is they're helping pay to make fund the development of the game. So so at that point, from my mind, it's okay that we're selling a constellation package as an add-on or whatever, because really they could have earned that. They don't have to do it, and they could go and just play the game down the run and earn the credits and buy that constellation. But if they do it now, then they'll start with the constellation and be fine, and they've helped make the game a little bit cooler.
Fair enough. So would you be able to extrapolate on what you have planned for the microtransactions, etc.? Cosmetic items. Would somebody be able to buy a plushy space raptor to hug, or or a Chris Roberts bobblehead? Like any plans?
And again, all these items, like I'm being serious. Like everything in the game will be available with in-game credits. So
oh, wow.
even the cosmetics, like putting a decal, doing all the rest of the stuff. That's all going to be in-game credits. There will not be anywhere where there is there's basically differentiated, like real money and game money. So it's all game money. So everything that you can do, the exception of buying the initial ship package that gets you the entrance to the game, or buying an additional, say, story campaign like another, the next chapter on from Squadron 42 or some physical items or whatever. Everything else is just sort of earned in game. And if you want to spend some real money to buy some credits to, just buy some stuff because you haven't earned all the stuff yet, but you want your ship to look pretty or whatever you want to do, you can do that. But there isn't any sort of separate microtransactions. It's like literally there are a lot of in-game, like in the system, in the economy transactions, and that's everything from ships to items, clothes you can wear, real estate in some areas, and then of course there's running costs, right? So you've got to like keep maintenance of your ship and equipment, make sure it's up to scratch and repaired, insurance, landing fees. And all those kind of things, just sort of the real world like running costs that we're sort of simulating, because we're trying to make the Star Citizen universe and economy like a real world, so it functions the same way. So there are costs to doing business in a civilized area because they've got to pay for the law enforcement, and your equipment isn't always perfect. You start to use it, it starts to get wear and tear, and you have to maintain it. Like if you had a private jet, you would have to like put it in for a service after so many hours of flying and stuff like that. So all those things will be simulated because we think that will create a more realistic, dynamic economy. So I don't know if that answers the question.
That does. That's very commendable. In fact, I think before EVE introduced their ARM shop, their gold shop, but that was all, aesthetics. They pretty much did the same thing. In fact, Plex and real money are interchangeable. There are stories of people losing thousands of dollars because somebody, blew up their ship that was carrying all this money. So,
yeah.
that is that an example of what you'd like to try to approach, that system of in-game, out-game, that kind of immersion, money into credits, so to speak?
Oh, totally. No, I mean, I would, I don't know where, there actually is some people that are talking about doing this, but ultimately my dream would be that like the currency in Star Citizen is like a currency you trade against, like you would be trading against euros. Change rate to dollars, and you can buy the credits with dollars, and you can sell the credits back for dollars on the other end. So theoretically, if you're a good player, you should be able to actually make money in this virtual world and turn it back into real money. So that would be my ultimate dream. I don't know, there's some legal things that you would have to figure out, especially here in America, but that would be something I think would be super cool. Like I'd love there'll be people that be like, yeah, I don't do anything. I'm a space hauler in Star Citizen that pays my bills in the real world. That'd be cool.
Hey, I'd gladly do that. Get me out of the warehouse. So I have one more question for you. I don't normally tell people the interviews. I like to keep things a surprise, but I have a friend of mine here in real life who's a very big fan. He's designed a character and everything based on your games, and his question, he wants to know, his name is Saber Dragon, what was your favorite version of Wing Commander and why?
Well, I really have two. So Wing Commander 1 is probably the one that would be slightly in the lead. And that's just because that game, when I did it, it was the game I saw in my head, was the game that happened. And it kind of just, we didn't balance and tweak it. Like literally all the missions and the combat, the ships, we designed it out on paper, we designed the missions out on paper, and we dropped it into the game, and they all worked and played first time, which is something I've never had another game do. So that was, and it all came together. I had this sort of idea and vision that sort of, okay, we can make it sort of cinematic and put you in cockpit and do all that. So that would be my favorite. And a close second is Wing Commander 3, because that was the one where I sort of felt like we made the jump to, sort of more sophisticated narrative.
Privateer, correct? 3 was Privateer.
Wing Commander 3 I'm talking about.
Oh, wow. See, I need to play more of your games. Carry on.
Yeah. Well, you were asking me about Wing Commander, weren't you?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I mean, I like Privateer a lot, but Privateer wasn't as fully realized as I wanted it to be at the time. So, like, Star Citizen is really, we're getting much closer to what, like, I viewed building this kind of universe. But no, Wing Commander 3 was mostly because of, we really upped the sort of narrative sense in terms of, like, characters and, characterization, and it just felt much more sophisticated and more like you were really in a movie. So those are my two favorite Wing Commanders by quite a long way. And I would think you would probably, if you ask people, I would say that they would probably put those two games probably at the top of the list of most of the ones I've done. I may be wrong, but other ones are great. Privateer is great. You know, I'm proud of Strike Commander and a bunch of other ones, but.
Well, thank you for answering that. I'm pretty sure he'll be happy. And again, apologies. As you can tell, I'm a young, newer generation that just is only lately now getting into the generation that I kind of wish I was born into. So,
No, no.
um, I have to get DOSBox or something here and check up. In fact, I'll admit, and apparently this is a bad thing, but looking at that lovely, map you have behind you, the movie was actually my first introduction to your works. And as a kid, I oohed and awed over that, and that's pretty much the point where, searching up Wing Commanders and, Privateer, and I just only now where I'm trying to catch up, so I feel kind of slow to the race.
Oh, no, don't. We're happy to have you at the race. Trust me.
Well,
I mean, it's actually one of the things I would say that's kind of cool is that there's a lot of people that played like Wing Commander a long time ago, and that's great. But there's also, I've noticed quite a few people in Star Citizen that never played Wing Commander, weren't playing games back then, but they just like sci-fi and the idea of all this, and so they joining the community, and it's really cool because I mean you need that, right? You can't just be the old fogies like me. It's got to be the new blood, and we build it out because I mean I just think the fantasy of a universe and exploring and going around and being whatever you want to be, making a role is like it's a pretty common and cool fantasy, right? It's very aspirational and sort of big, and it doesn't feel constrained, and I don't know. I like those, and that's kind of one of the reasons why I play games. So.
and I think that's a good thing because we have a person like you that is passionate for the game.
Yep.
So again, I'd like to thank you very much for taking the time to sit down and chat with me. Big shout out to you, CCCDober. A lot of C's there. Thank you very much, buddy. I didn't expect people, to start handing out interviews to me, and you guys don't have to do that. It's appreciated, but I'm pretty sure that me and Chris will have plenty more chats in the future as long as he's up to it.
Oh no, I'm definitely up to it. I enjoy all these. These are great. So that's and yeah, CCCDober is a pretty upstanding guy.
Well, thank you very much for your time, ladies and gentlemen. This is Chris Roberts. You guys all take care and fly safe. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed the show, click the fuzzy hawk on the lower left corner to subscribe. And like the video if you enjoyed it. And if you didn't enjoy it, leave a comment in the comments below or on the RSI forums.